Number 5. Shopping malls. Let's start with the classic survivor mistake, the shopping mall. I know. Dawn of the Dead made it look amazing. Endless supplies, multiple stores, entertainment, everything you could possibly need. In theory, it's perfect. In reality, it's a nightmare waiting to happen. The appeal is obvious. Malls have grocery stores, pharmacies, sporting goods stores, clothing stores, food courts. You've got supplies to last months, maybe even years if you're smart about rationing. There are multiple floors, escalators you can shut down, and only a few main entrances to defend. Plus, there's space. You're not cramped. You can spread out, set up actual living areas, maybe even maintain some sense of normalcy. Here's the problem. You're not the only person who had this brilliant idea. Everyone thinks the mall is safe, which means hundreds, maybe thousands of desperate survivors will converge on the same location. And where there are people, there are problems. First, overcrowding. Too many people means too many mouths to feed. Those supplies that looked endless, they'll be gone in weeks when you're splitting them among hundreds of survivors. Arguments start, factions form, violence erupts over resources. Second, the mall is impossible to truly secure. Sure, there are a few main entrances, but there are also loading docks, employee entrances, maintenance tunnels, rooftop access points, and dozens of stores with their own back rooms and exits. You'd need an army to guard all the potential breach points. You don't have an army. You have tired, scared people who are bad at guard duty. Third, noise and light. Malls are massive structures with huge glass windows and skylights. Any light you use at night is visible for miles. Any noise echoes through the building and attracts every zombie in the area. You're basically living in a beacon that screams, "Fresh meat here." Fourth, hostile takeovers. When supplies run low, desperate groups will try to take the mall by force. You'll be defending against both zombies and human raiders. And unlike zombies, humans have guns, strategy, and the willingness to do terrible things to survive. The survivors who make it aren't the ones in the obvious fortress. They're the ones in the hidden, boring, easily defensible locations nobody thinks about. The mall is a target. Targets get you killed. Number 4. Hospitals. This one seems logical at first. You need medical supplies, right? Where better to go than a hospital? Wrong. Hospitals are among the most dangerous places you can possibly be during an outbreak. Medical supplies, antibiotics, painkillers, surgical equipment, IV fluids, everything you need to treat injuries and illnesses. In a world without doctors, having access to a hospital's pharmacy and supply rooms could save lives. Plus, hospitals have backup generators, water systems, and are built to handle emergencies. Some even have helipads for escape. Hospitals are ground zero for infection. Think about it. When the outbreak starts, where do people go when they get bitten? The hospital. Where do infected people turn? The hospital. The hallways are filled with zombies, staff, patients, visitors, all trapped inside when everything went to hell. The infection density in hospitals is catastrophic. You're not fighting scattered zombies. You're fighting concentrated hordes in tight corridors with limited escape routes. Every room could have an infected patient who turned. Every closet could be hiding someone who died and reanimated. Hospitals are also mazes. If you don't work there, you don't know the layout. You don't know which stairwells lead where, which doors lock from the inside, where the emergency exits are. Getting lost in a hospital during normal times is annoying. Getting lost during a zombie outbreak is fatal. And here's the kicker. Everyone else wants those medical supplies too. Desperate survivors, armed gangs, they're all heading to the hospital. You're not looting alone. You're competing with dozens of other groups, all willing to kill for antibiotics and morphine. Even if you somehow clear a section of the hospital, you can't keep it clear. Hospitals have too many entry points. Emergency room entrances, multiple floors with windows, underground parking, service elevators. Something always gets in. Someone always makes noise. And then you're trapped in a building specifically designed to keep people inside. The supplies aren't worth your life. Skip the hospital. Find a small clinic or pharmacy in a low population area instead. Number 3, police stations and military bases, weapons and fortification. That's what draws people to police stations and military bases. The logic is simple. These places have guns, ammunition, trained personnel, and defensive structures. What could go wrong? Police stations have armories full of weapons, body armor, riot gear, and communication equipment. Military bases, even better. Heavy weapons, fortified perimeters, vehicles, organized personnel who know how to fight. These are professional defensive positions, built to withstand attacks. If you're going to survive, you need firepower. And these locations have more firepower than anywhere else. Plus, there's a psychological comfort in being surrounded by people who know what they're doing. Cops, soldiers, trained professionals who can keep order and mount an effective defense. Everyone thinks this way, which means these locations get swarmed immediately, not just by zombies, but by desperate civilians trying to get inside, by hostile groups trying to take control, by chaos incarnate. Police stations aren't designed to house large populations. They're administrative buildings with a few cells and an armory. They're not fortresses. Most are in urban areas surrounded by high-density populations, which means high-density zombie populations. You're defending a location in the worst possible area with inadequate supplies for the number of people who'll show up. Military bases? Even worse in some ways. Yes, they're fortified, but they're also high-value targets. Every survivor group wants to control the base for its resources. You'll be fighting off constant attacks from living humans, not just zombies. The base becomes a war zone. And here's the thing about military bases. They operate on supply lines. When society collapses, those supply lines disappear. Bases have stockpiles, but not enough to sustain hundreds or thousands of people indefinitely. Food runs out, water runs out. Then comes the hard choice. Stay and starve, or leave and face the hordes outside. There's also the command structure problem. Military bases have hierarchies. If you're not military, you're low priority. You'll get the worst duties, the smallest rations, and be expendable when tough decisions get made. Police stations have the same issue. Cops look after their own first, and perhaps most critically, when these locations get overrun, and they will, there's nowhere to go. You're surrounded by zombies, trapped inside with hundreds of panicking people, and the exits are blocked. It's not a fortress, it's a tomb with better weapons. If you're learning which places to avoid when the dead rise, hit that like button and subscribe for more survival strategies. Your support keeps this content coming. Number 2, your workplace or school. This one kills people because it's convenient. The outbreak starts during the day. You're at work or at school. Instead of leaving immediately, you think, I'll just stay here until it's safe. Fatal mistake. You're already there. You know the layout. You know where supplies are kept. You're with people you know, co-workers, classmates, teachers. There's a sense of security in the familiar. Plus, leaving means going out into the chaos, into streets filled with zombies and panicking mobs. Staying put seems safer. Workplaces often have break rooms with food, water coolers, first aid kits. Schools have cafeterias, gymnasiums for space, multiple classrooms you can barricade. It's not ideal, but it's something. And in those first terrifying hours, something feels better than nothing. Workplaces and schools aren't designed for defense. They're designed for easy access. Lots of windows, multiple entrances, open floor plans. You can barricade the doors, but you can't barricade everything. The building has too many weak points. Most workplaces are in commercial or urban areas, high zombie density zones. Schools are even worse because they're community hubs. Everyone knows where the school is. Panicked parents will flood there trying to get their kids. Desperate survivors will see it as a shelter. You'll be overwhelmed by living and dead within hours. Supplies are minimal. That break room has maybe a week's worth of snacks for 5 people, not 50. School cafeterias have some food, but not enough when you factor in everyone who'll end up there. And once those supplies run out, you're stuck in an indefensible building with no resources and no good options. Here's the worst part. These locations are full of people you can't trust to make hard survival decisions. Your co-worker Karen, who can't handle confrontation, she's going to get you killed by refusing to barricade the door someone's banging on. Your teacher, who wants to save everyone, they're going to let in someone who's been bitten, dooming you all. And emotionally, you're compromised. These are people you know. You'll make bad decisions trying to save them. You'll take risks you shouldn't take. You'll hesitate when you need to act. Familiarity breeds hesitation, and hesitation kills. The smart move? Leave immediately. Don't wait. Don't try to organize a defense. Get out while you can and head somewhere actually defensible. Your workplace loyalty means nothing when you're dead. Number 1, evacuation centers and refugee camps. The number 1 place that will get you killed. Official government evacuation centers and refugee camps. These are the places authorities tell you to go for safety. They're lying. Not intentionally, but they are. These locations are death sentences wrapped in false security. The government is setting up safe zones. They're organized, protected by military or police, have supplies stockpiled, and medical personnel on site. They're telling you on every emergency broadcast, come here, we'll keep you safe, we'll feed you, we'll protect you, we'll get you to permanent safety when this is over. There's comfort in authority. Someone else is making decisions. Someone else is in charge. You just have to show up and follow instructions. After the chaos of the outbreak, that sounds like paradise. Plus, you're not alone. There are hundreds or thousands of other survivors. Safety in numbers, right? Evacuation centers become overcrowded nightmares within hours. The government massively underestimates how many people will show up. They plan for hundreds and get thousands, maybe tens of thousands. Suddenly, you've got a refugee camp with inadequate supplies, inadequate security, inadequate sanitation, and inadequate space. Disease spreads rapidly in these conditions. Even without zombies, you've got people living in close quarters with poor hygiene. Cholera, dysentery, influenza, they rip through camps. Add in the stress of the outbreak and people's immune systems failing, and you've got a plague waiting to happen. But here's the real killer. Infected people hide in these camps. Someone gets bitten and doesn't report it because they're terrified of being kicked out. They hide it, hoping they're immune or it's not that bad. Then they turn in the middle of a packed camp at night, and suddenly you've got zombies tearing through tents and temporary shelters, infecting dozens before anyone can react. The camps are also impossible to secure properly. They're set up in open areas, parking lots, fields, fairgrounds. You can't fortify a fence line that's miles long with limited personnel. Zombies get through. When they do, there's nowhere to run. You're trapped in a sea of panicking people with zombies spreading through the crowd. And when supplies run low, which they will, the camps descend into violence. People fight over food, water, medicine. The thin veneer of civilization collapses. The military or police can't maintain order when they're outnumbered hundreds to one. Riots start. The camp burns, and you're in the middle of it. Here's the final nail in the coffin. The government will eventually abandon these camps. When they realize they can't sustain them, can't protect them, can't fulfill their promises, they'll pull out the essential personnel and leave everyone else behind. They'll tell you they're regrouping or establishing a stronger position elsewhere. What they mean is, you're on your own. The people who survive aren't the ones who trusted the authorities. They're the ones who took responsibility for their own survival, made hard choices, and avoided the obvious death traps everyone else ran toward. Notice the pattern? Every location on this list has the same fatal flaws. They attract large numbers of people. Crowds mean competition for resources, increased infection risk, and violence. They're obvious targets. If you thought of it, everyone else did too, including hostile groups who want to take it by force. They're difficult to truly secure. Too many entry points, too much space, not enough people to defend it properly. They create dependency. You're relying on supplies that will run out instead of developing sustainable survival strategies. They're in high-density areas. More people means more zombies. Urban and suburban locations are death zones. The survivors who make it avoid these places. They go rural. They find small, defensible locations nobody's thinking about. They stay mobile. They don't put all their faith in one location or one strategy. They adapt. When the outbreak happens, everyone will make the same mistakes. They'll run to the mall, the hospital, the police station, the school, the evacuation center. They'll think they're being smart. They'll think these obvious choices are safe. They're not. They're killing grounds. The question isn't whether you can survive in these places. It's whether you're smart enough to avoid them in the first place. Make better choices. Think like a survivor, not like a victim. And when everyone else is running toward the obvious shelter, you run the other way.